Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, we're so happy to have with us here the director of a brand new film called In Spite of Ourselves, one Mr. Josh Loeb. Josh, say hello.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure, man. And we need to talk about this film. First of all, In Spite of Ourselves, what is it? What do people need to know about it?
In Spite of Ourselves is an honest love story. Um, I grew up on, films in the late 80s and 90s, and they were sweet and funny and honest. And I feel like somewhere along the way, we kind of lost our way a little bit, where it had to be big and the plot points had to be big, and it wasn't about, just likable characters struggling against themselves and struggling to find, to make love work in a realistic way. And so um, I wanted to make a film that was funny and sweet and honest and that, we could all relate to.
Honestly, where we lost ourselves was around the mid 2000s when we started homogenizing the romantic comedy. I'm a bit of a romantic comedy junkie. I know the history. I love this genre. I got a lot of sensibility of that 80s Nora Ephron, Rob Reiner sensibility here, where things are honestly said. People talk to each other, and that is a rarity in the romantic genre, and especially the romantic dramedy, which I think is a dying breed. And you really bring a lot of that in here. But let's talk about let's talk about Connor and Brett and the chemistry between those two and how we were able to do that. How were you able to get them to alchemize on screen?
Well, I will say that sometimes, happy accidents happen, and this film was full of happy accidents. Connor, so as a first-time director, I'm not a kind of person who wants to see a lot of different candidates. I like to work with the people that I work with. And Michelle, my casting director and producing partner, we really had a really strong relationship and do. And so I asked her to really take a look at people and send me who she thought was great. And Connor was the first person that I met. I essentially offered her the role after one lunch because she was perfect. She had told me her backstory and how she had gotten to where she'd gotten, and it all felt she felt like Hannah. And so brought her on board, and she was a big part of it from the very beginning. And then Michelle sent me a couple different people to play Archie. And initially, I thought I wanted a stand-up comic, like who had maybe had less acting experience to come in and play Archie. But the people I met weren't the right people for that role. And then she had sent the script to Brett Dyer, and Brett loved it. And as soon as I met Brett, I was like, yeah, he might not be a stand-up comic by trade, but his personality, his thoughtfulness, there's a sweetness to him. And also you could see him kind of struggling against himself a little bit and self-admittedly, like all of us are, and very self-aware. And I was like, oh, he seems great. So I kind of rethought the role a little bit, but had no idea whether they would have chemistry or not. And sent them a text and said, okay, you guys are going to be in this film together. And we laugh. We circulate the text every once in a while. And it was like, Brett meet Connor, Connor meet Brett over the next several months. You guys are going to, fall in love, eat pastries together, trigger each other's shit, and ultimately find each other in spite of ourselves. But let's just start with coffee for right now. And when they had coffee, and honestly, they both came back like, I don't know. They both had their gripes, but they were open. They're both great people, so they were kind of open to it. Like, well, we'll figure it out, and very generously, them and Michelle and a couple other producing partners, we all took a trip to Portland in June. We shot the film in October. Took a trip in June. Just as sort of, I wanted to show them why I wanted to set it in Portland and get them familiar with some of my favorite places there. And unbeknownst to me, they were starting to fall in love in real life on that trip. And they started to hang out behind the scenes. And then in August, a couple months before we started to shoot, Michelle and I both got a call and said, hey, they wanted to call us together. And I was like, why do they want to talk to us together? Are they going to ask for more money? What's going on here? Do they have a gripe? And they called to tell us that they had fallen in love and were dating. And basically, by the time we went to shoot in October of 2024, they were deeply in love. And, obviously the concerns always come up, is this going to last? And what happens if it goes wrong? But like they just fell deeper and deeper. They were so kind to each other. And so they were in the early ascent of their relationship, even while we were shooting. And also very much their own characters. You know what I mean? They both identified with the characters, which is why they wanted to play them, and continued their relationship. And, they're engaged now. And so the chemistry was an act of whatever you believe in, the movie gods, God, whatever it is. It was beyond any control that I had. But Michelle and I guess, were intuitive enough to have a hunch that these people might relate to each other.
I love that. What a surprise. Beautiful people meet and fall in love with each other. What a damn surprise, huh? It's funny
Totally.
you use the word happy accidents because that's also a very good romantic comedy from the 2000s starring Vincent D'Onofrio and Marissa Tomei. So good pick
There
there,
you go.
Josh. We're on a pattern here. Uh, no, I really loved their chemistry, and I'm glad to see that it felt real and it was real and it was realer than we thought it was. That's so interesting. I love how things work out in this world. The world's such a weird place, and especially now,
Yeah.
uh, stuff just works out, I guess, right?
Yeah, for
um,
sure. For sure. It's beautiful.
let's talk about this. You are a first-time director. Now, what what do you take from that? Being a first-time director, but you've been around the movies for a long time.
Well, I have and I haven't. So my quick story is I was a English and film major in college, moved to New York, was writing, wrote scripts, read scripts, but didn't really feel like I could write characters. Every time I tried to write something, it just didn't have, they felt very sort of generated and not honest and real. And I honestly hadn't lived enough life and had enough relationships and been through enough to write the way I wanted to. And then life took me in a different direction. And my other passion is, I always say my passions professionally are food and film. And I fell in love with restaurants and started opening restaurants and had success. And in that process, fell in love, got married, had kids, met a ton of people, watched a lot of people fall in love in my restaurants. A lot of people I met there and got married. Um, and always knew I was going to go back to making films and writing films. And so when I started writing again, I just knew. I was like, okay, I'm ready to tell a story, to tell an honest story, the kind of story that I want to see. And started writing, wrote a bunch of things, but this is the one that kind of came along the farthest. And then got got signed by WME and got all these meetings, and really nothing came out of them. Everyone said, this is a small film and this is the kind of thing you make yourself. And I didn't think of myself as a director, so I just kind of was like, all right, well, I'm just going to keep writing and see what I can come up with. But I became friends. I live in Ojai. We moved up here about 6 years ago and became friends with a DP who's really talented and really loved the script and was like, hey, if you ever want to do this together, I'll do it with you. And so I finally just, at one point, out of frustration, just said, screw it, I want to make this. And I kind of assumed, I didn't know the first thing about directing, so I kind of assumed he was going to direct it. And then he turned to me and he goes, no, 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 you're going to direct it. He goes, I've seen the way you work in your restaurants. I see how you put things together, projects, and how you work with people and communicate. You can do this. I can help you learn the technical portion of it, but you can tell the story. And once I was bought onto that, it just felt so natural. And so, yeah, there was a huge learning curve. I did a short also in preparation for this, and I learned a lot on that process. But between the short and the feature, and especially in the feature, I just realized how much I have to learn still, but at the same time that I can do this. Like I know how to do this. I know how to work with actors. I know how to work with people. I know how to sort of take a vision and see it all the way through. And God, I just want to do so much more of it. So, so that's,
I love that.
telling stories is what I want to do. And I don't really, to be honest with you, I will definitely direct more films, but I want to write, I want to direct. I also want to just help other people. I want to build my production company and help other people who want to write and direct, tell stories. I don't need to be at the central point of them. I think we need more good stories out there.
You're the perfect example of what I always talk about in cinema and movies. you and I, we're not the youngest guys anymore, but this is your first film. You didn't get it till a little bit later in your life because you needed that
50 years
seasoning.
old, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you needed that seasoning. And like this should tell you guys, like if you're a 26-year-old film student and things aren't going your way, don't give up. Just keep trying. Keep doing what you need
Yeah.
to do. Find that passion for it, and you can make something because this is a gangbuster debut. Hell
Oh,
of a
thank you.
debut.
Thank
The
you.
alongside your cinematographer, the film just looks so good. It's a beautiful looking film, and that's really hard to achieve. It helps if you pick a good location, which you did, but so much
Thank
of
you.
that is on you to get it right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
And
I
I
mean,
think you got it right.
I think in two, one, it's a good lesson too. That's one of the things about starting off as a beginner, in my late 40s is you learn that it's really not about forcing. It's about learning to trust the process. And so I learned those skills. And so, I mean, I think it's also to your point earlier, even if what you want to do in your 20s isn't quite working out, if you just do what's in front of you and you do it really well, it will take you ultimately a lot of times to what you want to do because you learn skill sets in that process. I never imagined that I would go into restaurants first, when I was 20 years old, or that what I learned in restaurants would help make me a better filmmaker. But it's true. Like it gave me a head start. On one level, I'm a beginner, and on another level, I also know enough to go, hey, like it's about finding good, talented people, about letting them do their thing, about subtly guiding and staying true to the vision, but staying open-minded to things being different and better than you had ever anticipated. And that's the way I like to work, even with my actors. Like I always let them rewrite their stuff or take a crack at it. Sometimes I'll say, hey, this doesn't totally work, but a lot of times what they come up with is better than what was on the page, and I just let them run with it.
Yeah, I don't think 25 or 35-year-old Josh could have written these characters.
Yeah, for
These
sure.
characters definitely come from a place of experience. Now, I have two last questions for you. Ask every one of our guests these questions, and they're very, very simple, but the second one's real hard. And I
Okay.
apologize ahead of time. First one's
Yeah.
easy. Who are people that inspire you in your life that make you want to keep doing this thing?
I mean, there's a lot of answers to that. I mean, my family inspires me, my kids. My kids are all super creative and I it's so fun to be a part of their process and it's also so fun to share my process with them. My kids are the first two kids you see in the first scene of the film. They're at the corner. Those are two of my three. My older boy didn't want to be in the film, um, but they inspire me. And then just artists, of any kind who are true to what they do and who don't do things the same way every time. You know what I mean? That's like the reason I love Richard Linklater or like Paul Thomas Anderson. You can't always tell that their films are exactly the same because they really, to me, get into the essence of what that film is as opposed to having one set style. And I
The anti
really
Wes Anderson.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, I love a lot of Wes Anderson's films, but I prefer a filmmaker who I feel like their style is adjust to the story because I'm big on seeing, okay, well, what is this about? Like, and what's the feel of this, and what's the look of this, and reinventing it. It's the reason why when I was doing restaurants, I never wanted to open the same restaurant twice. You know what I mean? Because I
Yeah, it
didn't
makes
want them.
sense.
I wanted them to have certain core values that run through them but for them all to feel and look differently. And so I get inspired by that. I get inspired by athletes. I get inspired. I mean, I take inspiration from so many people, teachers of all kinds of things. I just think that when people are listening, I hope this makes sense, but when people are listening to themselves on a deeper level and not necessarily just trying to go out and either copy themselves or copy someone else, I'm inspired by it, whether it's perfect or imperfect or any of those things, because I think those are the best pieces of art and storytelling for me.
I love that. And you mentioned Richard Linklater. I mean, he put out two movies last year that were completely different. You know what I mean? Nobel Blue and Blue Moon, completely different movies. You wouldn't even tell they were from the same guy. And I love that
Yeah.
you use that as an example. That's perfect.
And also one last thing is artists who don't take themselves too seriously. And I think that
It's
like
so
that
important.
he like to and it's that fine balance, taking your work so seriously, but to not taking yourself too seriously. And you can feel it and you can feel it in an artist and feel it in a writer, feel it in a director. And I love that. I'm really drawn to that kind of stuff.
It's just the removal of your own pretense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's so enthralling to see. Last question, very difficult. You have two movies to watch for the rest of your life. What two and why?
Oh my God. Okay.
Yep, sorry.
Bull Durham is one of them.
Good choice. Good choice.
I think it is as close to a perfect film to me as possible. I love a good sports film, but I also just the characters in that. I mean, in the storylines and God, everyone feels real. Um, I have a lot of, I mean, I always said for me, one of my favorite films of all time was Big Night, just because I love that half the film is a feast, and I love the
Yeah,
characters in that also. Um, and I also love a good Adam Sandler film. Waterboy for me is my it's the unsung one for me.
I'm
It's
more of a wedding singer guy, but I get it.
Are you? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And a lot of people are, Billy Madison, Happy Gilmore's good to me, but Waterboy to me is brilliant.
I love
Like
it.
there's actually like lessons in that film.
Yeah.
It's all the comedy, and so I range all around it. But yeah, those I give you three that I love.
Listen, Big Night is such a great movie, and it's one of the you as a restaurateur would pick that because it's such a great distillation of how difficult it is to run a restaurant, but how
Yeah,
important it is to get every detail right.
yeah,
So it's such
yeah.
an
That
interesting film.
that feast was when we got married. I got married 18 years ago. That was our thing. We just want them. We didn't care about a big dance floor. We didn't care about a lot of stuff. We just wanted a feast, like the big night. So
I love
that
that.
was
Is there anything else you want to leave the audience with about your film?
honestly, as this is where the first time filmmaker in me comes out, I'm just so excited for people to see it. I just, we're premiering at CineQuest in next month, March 12th, and the theater is this big, beautiful thousand seat theater, and I've shown it obviously to a lot of people who I know and know me and so forth, but I'm so excited to watch it in a movie theater with people who don't know me and just to see their reactions. And so my goal over the next year is to get it out and get as many people to see it as possible.
Well, I'm going to give you a little bit of info here. Whether you're a first time filmmaker or 18th time filmmaker, because I've interviewed them all, it doesn't get easier. And that anticipation of wanting people to see what you've made will always be there.
Yeah, I hope so.
You know, I've talked to actors who were like, yeah, as seasoned actors, they're like, I just really want people to watch this and see what I did. I'm like, yeah, that's about right. That's
Yeah.
the theater kid energy in all of us. We want
Yeah.
people to see what we've made. Guys, make sure if you are able to get out to CineQuest, you check out In Spite of Ourselves. I think it's going to low key be one of the films of that festival. It'll be the film of whatever festival you submit it to because it's such a great movie, and I really think it is one of the most human pieces I've seen this year so far because I've seen some weird stuff this year.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
So
Thank you for
thank you
saying that.
for sharing it with me. I really appreciate it, Josh. Have a wonderful rest of your day, man.
All right, you as well. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure, guys.